we have a few more seats up front. Always the last ones to fill in, so don't be shy. Tonight, our goal is to do a couple things. One, bring the stakeholders up to speed with where we're at with our current discussions. That's number one. Number two, have an open dialogue and conversation with the stakeholders to get feedback, continue to get feedback on what we're doing, how we're doing it wrong, what we're doing right, and to continue to hone this plan as it goes forward so that we can still achieve the three primary goals of the LEMA. Okay, and I'll get into what those are here in a minute. Okay, so this is a presentation that we originally presented to our board on August 9. No action was taken by the board that night. We wanted to have tonight's public meeting so that we could have a reach out to stakeholders directly, because unfortunately we don't have this kind of a turnout at our regular board meetings. So we felt it was good to come to this venue to have this type of a conversation tonight. Please understand what we're talking about tonight. The document that's on the table in the back is not final. By any stretch of anyone's imagination, is not final. This is a result of many, many hours of draft discussions with the LEMA committee, with the state, because ultimately this document, we feel, should be the remedy for the Riviera National Wildlife Refuge alleged impairment. Okay? Just to make sure everyone is up to speed with exactly where we're at and the important dates in the history here. 2013, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service filed impairment on all junior water rights, irrigation water rights within the Rattlesnake Creek Subbasin. 2016, KDA DWR filed their final impairment report, indicating that yes, there was impairment to the quantity of 3,000 to 5,000 acre-feet annually. 2017, about mid-year, we asked KDA, if you were doing this, what would it look like? What does your remedy look like? Let me tell you folks, strict administration is not pretty. This is an economic devastation if this were to come to fruition, okay? So, the very next month, August, a year ago this month, the district court said we need to have this done as a LEMA as opposed to an IGUCA or some kind of strict administration order by the chief engineer. Water Act 7571, that's why we're here. Priority date, August 15, 1957. Rattlesnake, the LEMA boundary itself, we decided that it was a 10% or greater response to zenith gauge area, in addition to the remainder of the Rattlesnake Creek surface drainage basin. That equates to about 1,900 points of diversion, and 1,300 end guns are installed on center pivot systems throughout that region. Here we are. This is still the proposed boundary as of August 2017. It's continuing on to today. And I'll get more into where we're at today a little bit later on, because things are moving. Goals, 3 of them. First and foremost, to address the U.S. Fish and Wildlife impairment at Water Act 7571. That is the big one. This is the primary goal for the LEMA, period. Secondary, reduce water use in the LEMA area to a degree that will temper the growth of future stream flow depletions throughout the region, and to restore useful supply to diversion points throughout the Rattlesnake Creek Subbasin, both upstream and downstream. And I know I'll be going fast. We will have an opportunity for open discussion after we get done with my presentation here, okay? So please hold your questions until then. We have plenty of pens in the back. Jot them down. Hopefully you can remember them. So I'm sure there will be plenty. Rattlesnake Creek LEMA area, about 303,000 acre-feet authorized for irrigation. Based on modeling, the future use of that irrigation will be 233,000. We estimate that End gun removal will save 19,000 if done across those 1,300 end guns by removing those. However, there's an extra area that needs to reduce 4,000 acre feet. We call the high impact area, based on modeling, in order to achieve that secondary goal of reducing that future stream flow depletion. So, simple math, 233,000 minus 19,000 minus 4,000 gets us to 210. We agreed with DWR that this 210,000 acre feet use annually within the Rattlesnake Creek Lima area would achieve all of the goals that were proposed earlier, of providing a remedy to Quivira, of reducing the future stream flow depletions, and to providing future storage and supply to point diversion throughout the area. In lieu of upfront allocations today, we want you, the stakeholders, to be able to take this on your own terms and to establish voluntary use targets for the first 5 years of the Lima area, or the Lima plan, 2020 through 2024. To achieve 210,000, we have to break folks up. We're breaking folks up into groups based on their priority date, not based on stream flow response or where they're at, where they're located, but based on priority purely. Okay, so if you're the first one in line, you look better than ones behind you. But we did it in groups. It's not everybody on their own. We're broken into 4 groups, and I'll explain what those are here in a bit. Okay? These are voluntary use targets based on the individual water use, individual water rights, certified appropriation. So if you have a 195 acre foot permit that you can pump today, we're basing it on 195 acre feet. If you have a 100 acre foot permit today, we're basing on 100 acre feet today. We're basing these water use targets based on that number. Not what you've used historically, not what the net irrigation requirement is for corn or anything like that. It's purely based on certified acre feet of water. We're trying to give some value, some merit to that property that you have purchased over time. Okay? So if going off historic use, all we're doing is reinforcing use it or lose it with this new program. We don't want to do that. We want to move away from that as a policy. You go to certified acre feet. In recognition of those water rights that participated with the AWEP program, Agricultural Water Incentive Enhancement Program with NRCS, we classified those participants into a secondary group based on priority as well. You'll see those clarified in the document as well as here in a bit. Okay, so those are the water rights that we can document today that have shown conservation by proactively being a participant in that program. Does not mean those are the only folks that would get that recognition. Those are the only ones we can document today. Okay, and I'll get to the appeals process as well. All right, how do you break folks up into groups? This was not fun. We'll start at the back and work up. April 10, 1984. It's very similar to a date in time that many of you understand as NDS. It's not the same date. There's no water right in the Rattlesnake Creek Subbasin. It is April 15, 1984. We chose April 10, because that's the closest one. So if you are junior to inline to NDS dates of April 10, 1984, you are classified into groups 7 and 6. If you voluntarily participate with AWEP, you move up to class 6. That's the only differentiation between 6 and 7, is participation with AWEP. Okay? I'll get into that in a bit as well. 4 and 5, same thing. Their only differentiation is based on AWEP participation. They're the next ones in line, because groups 2 through 5, those are all the junior water rights, irrigation water rights within the Rattlesnake Creek Subbasin that are senior to NDS. We get junior to water rights 7571. Okay? So the first one in line Group 1, they are senior to Quivira. They are exempt. To be very clear, they are exempt from this LEMA proposal. We're dealing with priority, we're dealing with impairment. They are exempt from this LEMA because they are not shown to be impairing Quivira because they are higher priority than Quivira. I need to be very clear about this. The next one behind them are the ones that are junior to Quivira. And so we grouped 2 through 5 are all those water rights in between. We cut that group in half to create 2 and 3 and then 4 and 5. Okay? We just cut that group in half. Accounting. In order to achieve 210,000 acre feet, if nothing else happens, if at the end of 2024, no one takes an end gun off, you will see these voluntary use targets become mandatory. Okay? And I'll get to an exception to that in a second as well. If that were to happen, Group 2, their total authorized quantity currently today is 7,009 acre feet. Would be reduced by 25% to 5,200 and change. And that carries on for each group. These are sum totals for each of those respective groups, based on authorized quantity, not based on use. So if you used 100% of your water right in the past, okay. If you used 10% of your water right in the past, okay, we're going to treat you the same. It's based on the property value. Here are some examples. When I presented this at the August 9 board meeting, I had some bad examples in here, and that's the presentation that's out on the website right now. I had some water rights that were up in the 400 acre foot range. It's not representative of what the vast majority of the water rights are. So I picked water rights within each of these groups that are 195 permits. That's the typical full water right. So that you can see apples to apples comparisons for each group with the same common starting number of 195. Okay? These are actual water rights. So probably some folks in the room, you're looking at your water right on the board. These are actual numbers. So again, I clarify, Group 1, certified for 195, they're exempt from the LEMA as a voluntary use target. You're going to continue to pump 195. Augmentation. I think to a person, we can all agree that augmentation is the core of this. Without augmentation, these numbers change. It is devastating. Augmentation is critical. We don't have a handle fully about the effects of augmentation, but we have a pretty good idea based on our model. Okay? We are committing to go through a full engineering study to make sure that what we're proposing to do as an augmentation well field does not devastate that location, that area. We do not want the water quality to be degraded. We do not want the water table to be declined if it's unreasonable. We want that to be a sustainable region still after augmentation. We are committing to that. We are fully understanding that that has to happen. We don't want those producers to be completely shut off or have to move wells or anything like that. We don't want that. The capacity of that well field, we agree, will be 15 CFS capacity. No more, maybe less. We'd like to be less. And provide a suitable water quality that Quivira needs. We've established with KDHE some criteria for what that would look like. We're in continual talks with KDHE to make sure that what we're proposing to deliver to the Rattlesnake Creek stream would not impair further that stream, because that is a monitored stream by KDHE today. So we're not going to mess with that. We don't want to make it better. We don't want to make it worse. As a result, since we do not have the engineering study done yet, the time frame is still in limbo. It's still out in the wind. We don't have an estimate of cost because the study is not done. We do not have an estimate of time because the study is not done. We've just started those discussions to reach out to engineering firms with vast experience in these types of well field designs and pipeline design. Okay, we're going to try and bring the best we can into this area to do this right the first time, not have to try and fix it later. Okay, much like when we developed the groundwater model, we went out and found a world-class modeler to do that. We're going to commit to doing something similar here. Below groundwater, using that hydrologic model, has estimated the effects of the Lima and augmentation program. They're a net gain to the area as a large. The area has historically seen declines in water table. We'll see a net gain in storage. Be clear here. Based on baseline pumping, there will be a gain over baseline. It is not necessarily a rise in water table. It is better than what is currently happening, is what we plan to see. Okay? And there's a map that I'm going to reference here in just a second. I'll illustrate that a little bit further. The area immediately surrounding the well field, they're going to be the ones that show the impact that we're very mindful of and we're concerned about. We're going to minimize this as much as possible. Okay, this is what I was just talking about. These are the modeled impacts of the Lima and augmentation project. This is a model difference from baseline to what we're proposing to do. This does not mean that you'll see water coming out of the ground in the future. This just means that if we did nothing, these would all be zeros. What we're planning to do will cause these to instead be a rise throughout the majority of the Lima area. And you can see the area directly around the well field. That's what I'm talking about, that we're concerned about. We want to make sure that's done right so that that's not as bad as it looks. Okay? We're mindful of that. With augmentation, the water use estimates that we have today, the 210,000 acre feet for the area, that will be evaluated in 2025. Did we achieve that or not? If the water use goals are met at that time, nothing happens. Keep doing what you've been doing. If the region as a whole achieves 210,000, do whatever mechanism you want, whether it be a WCA, voluntary conservation, handgun removal, gold star. We all pass along to 2025 and following with the same requirements as before. If we don't, required water allocations to meet the goals by 2029. But if an individual water user achieves their individual water use target, keep doing what you've been doing. No status change. Still about voluntary water use target. Because whatever you've been doing has been working. So why are we going to step in and change it? But for the folks that don't, mandatory water use allocation at that point. The same as it was when it was established. Okay? Based on those 6 target groups. But that doesn't achieve 210. 210 is the key. So whatever shortfall the group suffered as a whole, the folks that did not make their individual target will be grouped together and they will be bearing the brunt of that shortfall. Starting with the most junior in line, group 7, and then working up to group 2. Okay, so still recognizing priority, still working on that premise. Okay, so it's going to start with group 7 and work up until we get to 210,000 for that second period, 2025 through 29. Okay, so if you've done what you've been doing for the previous 5 years at that point, you've made your individual target. Keep doing what you're doing. We're not going to require you to do anything beyond that. But if you fail to do your individual target at that point, you're required to make your goal and make up whatever difference the group as a whole missed. Because we have to get to 210. Without augmentation. If augmentation is not implemented by 2022, water allocations start in 2023. The timetable is expedited. continue not implemented by 2024. 2025 to 2029, water use allocations are mandatory, assuming no augmentation. When, I stress when, I think augmentation will continue to be on the table. When augmentation is implemented, then they'll start from group 2 and work down, and those water use allocations will be throttled back. Okay, to keep everything in balance. Still based on priority. Appeals, we anticipate a lot of appeals. If you identify errors in the calculation of how we achieved those came to those water use targets, you feel you're in the wrong group, you feel we have the wrong certified acre feet, there's an appeals process. We can evaluate that. If you feel that you've been a conserver and you've been showing documented conservation throughout that time, this is the process to get that recognized. Right now, we can document the folks that participated with AWEB. We don't have good documentation, unfortunately. So, throughout this appeals process, it gives you the opportunity to move from group 3 up to group 2, from group 5 to group 4, from group 7 up to group 6, to recognize your conservation. Okay? That would be through the appeals process with the district staff and the district board. Following that appeal period, however, those voluntary use targets become locked in until we evaluate it in 2025. So where are we now? August 9, myself and the Lehman Committee, presented the draft that is in front of you tonight to the district board and the public. Had this exact same PowerPoint presentation with a few minor tweaks. There are some issues that were identified that evening and in the weeks following. So those conversations where we're continuing to hone this project as we go forward is continuing to be modified. We are not locked into what the revision 10 looks like. That is draft. Okay? One of the items that we're looking at, revising the water use targets for a high impact area due to their increased impact to the Rattlesnake Creek at Zenith Gauge. Okay? So it goes back to that hydrologic understanding that 4,000 of that target has to come out of that high impact area. Okay, this is a requirement. You'll notice in one of the handouts tonight, a red, green, and yellow document. That is what we're calling the grade card. That grade card is very explicit line item with Zone B, the high impact area, has to be itemized and has to have its own special target. So that is one change that you will probably end up seeing is that special characterization of that area. Second, restriction of the Lima boundary to Zone A only. Drop off the remainder of the Rattlesnake Creek subbasin. So just water rights that have shown through modeling to have a 10% or greater impact to Zenith Gauge. That's it. In doing so, our understanding of 210,000 would change. That number would be reduced because you have less folks contributing to that number. So the voluntary use targets would change. It is our every hope and desire to not modify them dramatically. That they would be very, very similar, if at all possible, to what you're seeing tonight. Okay? We're working hard. The Lehman Committee, please correct me if I go too far. Our goal is to not put anyone out of business. Period. That's what was stated in the board meeting in August 2017. That still is something that is discussed in every single Lehman Committee meeting. Is what we're proposing. Is that going to cause someone to just say, forget it, I'm done and go out of business? We don't want that. That doesn't work. That does not work for this economy, to have someone go out of business. Are we done? No. We want your comments. We want your feedback still. Tonight, tomorrow, the day after. Please get them in. You'll see another document that's listed out, I believe, as Appendix A. That is our attempt at a response to the comments we've received thus far. Hopefully they're adequate. That's our goal. We want them to be adequate. We've answered those concerns. Hopefully you've also seen some of the issues that were brought up in those comments are now implemented in this latest draft. Before we didn't take note of the MDS date. That date is now in there as a breakover point between group 5 and 6. Okay? So there are key portions of those comments that we feel we can implement and still have achieve the same goal. Okay? We want those comments. We look at every single one. Okay? That does not change tonight. With that, I'll keep this up because I anticipate going back to it at some point. I'd like to introduce Lynn Freeman.